Providing a dose of rationality, critical thinking, and skepticism from a conservative atheist perspective, this is the Bitchspot Report podcast. Every week, your host will bring you news of note and commentary on topics of interest in hopes of sparking intelligent discussion on important issues of the day. It's not pretty, it's probably not safe for work, but we tell it like it is and offer no quarter to the credulous, the gullible, or the downright stupid. It's not for the easily offended or for the religiously or liberally minded, but it is about 90 minutes of secular conservative entertainment. So let's get right to the show. Alu Admiral Akbar to you all. This is the Bitchspot Report podcast. It's a Muslim-heavy show this week, entirely by accident, I assure you, but there you go. This week, we talk about an American gunmaker who thinks that Muslims are repelled by words. A conservative group thinks that paganism has entered the Catholic Church. Ben Carson thinks Muslims aren't qualified to be president, and a Muslim kid is arrested for bringing a clock to school. Then we talk about why so many atheists, especially on the left, are unable to criticize Islam. Stick around. This ought to be fun. How we doing?
Oh, surviving. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad, I guess. I guess we kind of got a Star Wars theme kind of going, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about Star Wars earlier in the week and about Episode 7, which I don't care how good of a movie it is or isn't. It's not going to be Star Wars. It just isn't. They don't make that kind of movie anymore.
Well, I'll probably go see it. I mean, the problem, of course, for me is that there's just no, for me it was that Star Wars came when I was much younger, was one of the first movies I saw, so there will never be another movie like it because I'll never have the same, be in the same place in my life.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not really what it is for me. I mean, way back when George Lucas was writing the original Star Wars, he did an awful lot of work on it. He went into the whole mythology behind it. He based it, he spent a long time talking to like Joseph Campbell. He went along with the hero's journey. And they don't make movies like that anymore. It took him a long time to write that screenplay because there was a mythology behind it. Today, they just dash out a screenplay in 10 minutes, and that's the end of it, so they can make as many movies as fast as possible, and they don't give a damn about what underlies it. That's why whatever they make won't be Star Wars, because nobody does that anymore.
Yep, that's true. So, I don't know. It's an unfortunate situation for a lot of people. I mean, one of the problems I have is just that, I think CGI has done terrible damage to films. You know that?
Yeah.
It's a case where, it's become too easy just to throw shit at the screen.
Oh, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's no longer, well, can I do this? Can I afford to do this? Can I physically do this? Can I actually do this effect that I want to do? It's, what the fuck not? It's only CGI. I can do anything.
Yep. And, you've seen that in a lot of movies, like the Second Thing movie. First Thing, glorious, wonderful movie, mainly because the monster wasn't popping out every 5 seconds. Second Thing, hey, we have CGI, so completely lost the tension. And, unfortunately, today with CGI, we'll probably have mad Muslims bursting out of people's chests.
That would actually be interesting to see.
To be shot by the holy gun.
Oh, yes. Well, alright. We should probably just go ahead and get to the news.
And now the news.
Hey, what's up? This is Mookie, and I'm out here at Big 3 East at a great training center where they're letting us test out Spike's new rifle, the Crusader. I came on board about a year ago, and at my first meeting, I had driven 3 hours listening to the news, and the owner asked me the question, Ben, what would you like to do with a rifle? What would you like on a rifle? And he was asking the question in regards to technical specifications, like the bolt, the barrel length, whatnot, and what have you. And I just blurted out in the meeting, I want a rifle that no Muslim terrorists can use to murder innocent people. And I half expected to be fired, or at least not taken serious, but they took the ball and they ran with it. What's awesome about this is the text. Psalm 144:1. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. This ensures that no Muslim terrorist will ever pick up this weapon to use it to bring harm against another person. That's actually my favorite part of the rifle.
It always gets me how crazy this kind of thinking is, but a Florida gun maker who has started manufacturing AR-15 semi-automatic rifles with an engraved Bible verse and a cross claims that the military should start using them because Muslims will somehow magically be unable to pick up the guns and use them against us on the front lines. Apparently, this is supposed to repel them like kryptonite, but that makes no sense at all in the real world, showing just how completely out of touch these religious crazies actually are. Who in their right mind would actually think this?
I don't know. It strikes me as rather odd, given the fact that there were many crosses held by the Crusaders, and, well, that didn't work out too well for them. My thought, honestly, is that this person is not so much believing the gun, is that he is selling a gun he knows a lot of people will buy. You know, because you saw this, I mean, you see this every time Obama does something or hints he might do something or rolls up and gets up on the left side or the right side of the bed in the morning. There's a tremendous sale of, guns, ammunition, paraphernalia, because everybody knows soon he's going to come and take you to his FEMA death camps.
Yeah, but I mean, this whole thing, it reminds me of the people who think that, like, airdropping bacon or spraying pig's blood on Muslims is going to make them lose their shit. And it's not going to. The actions have to be, the actions have to be voluntary. If it's just done to them without their consent, their religion is completely fine with it. And these people are just they're stupid.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the problem is we got a lot of people in America who are, let's face it, based on magical thinking. I do this, you know, I'm holding my +5 Vorpal M16 of slaying. And, you know, you can't roll your save against that. And, which would be, you know, amusing if some people weren't really buying this. But, you know, a lot of the problems is that when you have stuff like this, they're selling it to people. We've got people out paranoid. I mean, remember the great invasion of Texas, that Texas currently now labors under the boot of the federal government. Well, yeah, no shit. Texas has labored under the boot of the federal government since the Civil War. But that doesn't change the way these people think.
Well, they've been serving under the federal government since they ratified the Constitution and voluntarily signed on.
Right, but I mean, you know, the last attempt to not serve under the federal government was the Civil War, and that didn't play out so well.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's magical thinking. It's the same thing we talk about. Like I said, I think that these people are making money from it. People are buying the guns. A certain number are buying the guns just for the hell of it, because I knew one fellow who spoke of, you know, at this point, we have a small number of gun owners who buy a lot of guns, and fellow writing about described them as, you know, Barbie doll collectors. They collect guns of every type, you know, in the same way that you collect Barbie dolls if you're a younger girl. And so I'm certain this is going to end up on the wall of a bunch of places, make a bunch of people money. But yeah, it just is rather ridiculous.
Yeah, but nobody's even bothered to think about this stuff. I mean, let's be really honest. The Bible verse is written in English, and most Muslims that you'd be fighting in the Middle East, they don't speak English. So they don't even know what the fuck it says. You know, it could say, you know, insert ammunition here. How the fuck are they going to go, oh, well, we shouldn't pick up this gun and use it? It's the stupidest goddamn thing in the world that nobody has spent like 2 seconds thinking about.
Like I said, I mean, the people making this, or what they're thinking about is, to be honest, hey, we're going to get a bunch of people buying this. You know, we're going to be selling a lot of guns. You know, that's what I think that the makers are thinking. The other people, yeah, I mean, it is dumb. It's this odd magical thinking you have that has never worked. You know, because honestly, guys, when was the last time God unloaded heavenly orbital artillery support on anybody?
Never.
You know, yeah, I mean, it's not exactly something that happens. I don't recall us storming the beaches of Normandy, holding up the Bible and the cross, and, you know, that's when the great tornadoes came and destroyed the German fortifications. No, that didn't happen. And if God's not going to do it against the Third Reich, He's not going to do it for anybody else. You know, we have dealt with far more terrible, far more dangerous groups that this magical thinking doesn't work against. And, you know, it's just, It's magical thing. The biggest problem is that it makes America look like a bunch of complete idiots.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling this gun the Crusader, and the last thing we need are more Christian Crusaders, because the last time we had Christian Crusaders around, things didn't go so well. But especially when you're talking about delusional Christian Crusaders who thinks that their guns are going to magically stop working in the hands of the enemy. I mean, do they think that if a Muslim picks up the gun, their hands are going to explode into flame or something? Seriously, what's wrong with these people? I mean, what is wrong with these people?
Just, they live in their own little world, you know. That's all I can say.
I mean, I get really tired of people living in their own little world. We got one world that actually exists. Try living in it.
Yeah. It is one of these things that, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I just find it kind of ridiculous. I am, because it's stupid.
Well, it's beyond stupid. And the problem is this same kind of thing comes up over and over and over and over again. Like, you know, it hasn't been that long before people were going, yeah, we should like make bacon bullets or whatever. And then all the Muslims will stop fighting. No, they won't. What are you, stupid? You know, come on. This is not goddamn kryptonite. It's not going to stop anybody from doing anything. They're just going to get pissed off and probably fight even harder.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to laugh at us, which is honestly what they did when that whole idea came up. Nobody took it seriously. Yeah, pack all the bacon you want into your bullets, you imbecile. All you're doing is costing yourself money, and they're kind of going, whatever, we're just going to keep coming.
Yeah, and it's a case of, I don't know, it's just.
I mean, seriously, if we started putting, like, scraps of paper out of the satanic Bible into bullets, would Christians stop, you know, would Christians run away in fear? No. Does anybody seriously think that? No. So what the fuck, people? How dumb can you be? Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And
it really is. I mean, I don't know. When I look at this, I kind of don't have a lot to say because it just kind of stops at this is idiotic. That's where it kind of stops because what? You're writing magic? I mean, you know, that's not even biblical actually. There's very few places in the Bible. In fact, if you want to think about it, Gnosticism, the idea that you can write magic words and compel things, that's a heresy.
True.
You know, that's not even, so not only is this not going to work from the pragmatic viewpoint, it's not going to work, you're not even getting your Bible right.
But none of them do. And the other stupid thing is, the Muslims actually respect the Bible.
Yes, it's one of the three books, but, don't tell anyone that. They'll freak.
Yeah, so it's not like there's anything that you're going to do that's going to affect anybody. These people don't even know what they're doing. They're just doing things that appeal to the lowest common denominator. And I wish maybe we should just shoot the lowest common denominator and just solve all of our problems.
Then you have a new lowest common denominator, but they're doing it because it makes money. I mean, these people worship the great god green. I mean, really. Because honestly, a lot of the people buying stuff from them are stupid. I mean, it's like the sovereign citizens that hold seminars about how the dollar is no good and you can pay for it with your credit card or in cash. And nobody going to these seminars or the gold bug seminars ever considers that you're asking me to pay in the money that you're claiming, that this seminar is to teach me how to get along with after the world collapses and this money is worth nothing, yet you're accepting this money.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
All right, so you want to move on?
Yeah.
There's not much you can say about just institutionalized stupid.
But when the Vatican leapt into the controversy on climate science, we were initially under the impression that His Holiness was a victim of bad advice from bad advisors. You know, there were people from the UN who were population control advocates. There were people from other left-wing groups who were advising the pontiff. And so, our initial reaction when we were promoting our tour to Rome was that, Your Holiness, please don't listen to these guys alone. There are other scientists out there you should listen to as well, have a well-rounded view. Well, I think over the last 6 months, since the encyclical itself has been released and the Pope has made some subsequent comments, we're sort of amending our view. While we initially thought it was bad advisors, I think that something more may be afoot. Doing some research into the history of reforms in the Catholic Church, there was a medieval festival where masqueraders with grotesque masks took over the church and elected what's called a fool's pope. It's called the Effectual Papo. This is in the 12th through the 15th centuries. This is a pagan ritual, or pagan remnants that were seeping into the church. One of them also was nature worship. What is environmentalism but nature worship? And at these fool's pope festivals, they would worship nature, tell jokes, and make satires of Christianity. And Carl Jung, the noted psychiatrist in his book Four Archetypes, said that jests, madness, and revelry make clergy a mockery. So the clergy was involved in this process of making the church at that time.
Paganism has entered the church. Dun, dun, dun. Much like the Spanish Inquisition from the Monty Python show, nobody expects paganism in the Catholic Church. This is basically, the Pope has been talking a lot about climate change and about our need to be good stewards of the environment. And a leading group of climate change skeptics are now arguing that he's having paganism. That, you know, all of a sudden that something more may be afoot, that invoke pagan rituals and nature worship that were seeping into the church during the Middle Ages. Our pagan forms returning to the church this day. Okay, I'm going to give a proper answer. No. Oh, right. Longer form. No. Because in all seriousness, the Bible has always had extremely strong themes of stewardship. You know, a couple of the parables speak about it. It's spoken of in the Old Testament. I mean, you know, the idea that you are a steward of God's creation is not paganism. It's not controversial. And the Pope is perfectly right to speak about it. Secondly, it's not paganism because Christianity does not imply that the world in and of itself is a sacred object. The world was created by God and, you know, therefore is an offspring of God's creation. So it's his creation that you're stewarding. But paganism would be if the Pope went out and said, we're now going to worship the damn tree, which he's not. And this is a case where we're starting to get just ever more desperate on climate change skepticism. I mean, because they were perfectly happy to say the Pope is the greatest guy since sliced bread when he wasn't saying anything. Now he started saying things they don't like, and he, amazingly enough, has become a pagan.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's remember, there's tons of paganism in the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church, all the way through the Middle Ages, they just adopted all kinds of pagan ideas just so they could get as many followers as they could.
Right, but I mean, these are outward, these are rituals, and adopted, like you said. You could argue the saints, many of the saints were kind of ripped off from pagan, deities, but the problem is that that's not a change. What they're arguing is that the church is somehow changing and now becoming pagan in its belief systems, and that's not the case. I mean, it is the same Catholic Church that was around before he started talking about climate change. And you know, you get this a lot about climate change because honestly, the evidence is really kind of overwhelming. And a lot of the skeptics are kind of running out of stuff to say. And when the Pope starts coming on board, you know, even today, a lot of politicians really listen to the Pope. Mainly because a lot of Catholic voters really listen to the Pope on some things. So this is a case where we're seeing, you know, yet another case of, okay, well, we're going to have to try to discredit the messenger, which I don't think is going to work. And, you know, you get the, small groups that are trying to discredit the Pope. And this is a fairly poor way to do it.
Yeah.
It's not paganism in any real sense. Not honestly certain why they thought this was going to make a good attack, because to be truthfully honest, the people who are going to listen to it weren't listening to the Pope to begin with. The people who are listening to the Pope aren't going to listen to it.
All right. I mean, if by paganism they mean like moderation and a hint of reality, then I agree. Let the Catholic Church go as pagan as they want. I mean, what's next? They might actually stop hating gays and atheists and might even stop molesting kids. Well, we can't possibly go there.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of that, did you see recently where the Pope was pushing churches to embrace divorced people into the fold? Because, more than 50% of couples are getting divorces, and much higher for the religious people, and they're losing potential butts and pews. So, oh yes, all these things that we've openly hated for all these years, we're going to embrace because, hey, it might make us some more money.
Right. Well, and also the fact of the matter is that, it's one of these things, the Catholic Church changes incredibly slowly. There's been some geologists that have mentioned, gee, I wish my mountain changed as fast as the Catholic Church. So there's also the fact that, Francis is a bit more liberal than the two previous popes. I don't really think you could have been less liberal than Benedict, but, so it's definitely a change in the church. And yeah, part of that is the case is the church was pushing people out of the church who might have wanted to come back into the church. So that is a way to make it easier for them to get back into the church. And, you can see this too, in a way. Obviously, one of the things the church is probably looking at is there are a lot of poor Catholics, and climate change is going to hurt poor Catholics. Climate change is going to hurt the poor in general, But yeah, this is a case where, up until he ripped somebody's beating heart out in St. Peter's Basilica, I don't think he's a pagan.
Oh, yeah. God, I can kind of imagine that scene from Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, Pope Francis holding up a beating heart going, Kalimar!
Well, then he ripped the heart out of something. It would definitely make the Cardinals meetings a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But, and to be honest, being that where my mom grew up, it was claimed that the Pope wore the mitre to conceal the horns that he got upon becoming Pope. There's probably some people that would believe that, so we probably shouldn't say that too loud.
Yeah, well, but those people are crazy anyway. They're all crazy. What's wrong? These people are all idiots.
Crazy? I mean, some of them are running for president. Are you saying that some of our candidates for president are crazy?
All of our candidates for president are crazy.
Vote for me.
No, you're even more crazy. But anyway, let's go ahead and just move on.
So do you believe that Islam is consistent with the Constitution?
No, I don't. I do not. I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that.
And would you ever consider voting for a Muslim for Congress?
Congress is a different story, but it depends on who that Muslim is and what their policies are.
And speaking of crazy Christians and Muslims, GOP candidate Ben Carson has entirely missed the point of having a secular government when he declared that Muslims should not be elected president because somehow Islam is inconsistent with the principles of the Constitution. Yeah, like Christianity, particularly the kind of overwhelmingly fundamentalist Christianity that Carson pushes. It's all inconsistent with the Constitution. Get the fuck over yourself, asshole.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case of what? The Christian who said the dominionist isn't, incompatible with the Constitution. The fact of the matter is that you can, be a president, whatever your faith is, so long as you accept that I am running a secular country, and I do not suddenly make decisions based on the fact that I hate Muslims, I hate Christians, I hate the spaghetti monster. Your decisions must be made as much as humanly possible, because obviously everybody has biases based on their growth, on their experiences, on the law. That's it. You're supposed to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't say that you can't be a Muslim. It says that you must uphold the Constitution. And we've had plenty of Christians who kind of played fast and loose with that. So if you're going to say a Muslim shouldn't be elected president, I will restate that to say anyone who cannot faithfully execute their oath, which includes being the president for everybody in the nation, regardless of their religion, should not be president.
Yeah, I mean, we have a constitutionally guaranteed secular government, something that people like Carson and the rest of the GOP clone car hate, and they dare to say that Muslims are the problem. Well, if you want to be honest about it, all religions are the problem. None of them belong anywhere remotely near the government, and anyone who can't leave their religious faith at the door doesn't deserve to be elected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, for instance, Jimmy Carter. Okay, Jimmy Carter was a Baptist, and he evidently is a rather faithful Baptist. He left his religious beliefs insomuch as, his specific religious beliefs. I mean, his feelings about the poor and stuff he obviously took with him, but that's not a specific religious belief. But he left the specific religious beliefs at the door. And he executed his oath of office as president, despite the fact that it wasn't a very good term. And that's all that you're asking. When you're saying someone shouldn't be elected president, you're instituting a religious test, and that's a no-no. That is about the biggest no-no you can get in the U.S. Constitution. There are no religious tests for voting, no religious tests for being president, short of just the fact that you'll be able to execute your oath. And obviously what these guys are doing is they're trying to play to their base. It's unfortunately, you're seeing this more and more. I mean, again, we got the anti-crusader ray gun. We've got, Muslims shouldn't be elected president. We're going to be coming up and talking about dangerous clocks. And America has a big case of Muslim paranoia. Usually aimed at the wrong people, because it's usually aimed at, like Iranians, instead of actually the groups that have really hurt us. But it is unfortunately something that is being used politically. And of course, it's an easy thing to use politically because there is no boogeyman. I mean, there is not going to be a Muslim elected in America for quite some time because the votes just aren't there.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny how Ted Cruz is saying that, oh yeah, there should be no religious test for public office, when there is a de facto religious test right now in the eyes of most Republicans. If you're not a Christian, an open and vocal and fundamentalist Christian, then you have no chance in hell of getting elected in the GOP. These people are fucking hypocrites.
Well, that's not so much a religious test in the sense that you're not being allowed to run. That's just the knowledge that if you're running for the GOP, you probably didn't evaluate your electorate.
But it's not just the GOP, it's anyone. You cannot get an openly Muslim, openly atheist, openly anything but Christian candidate for any party in this country elected. You can't. It can't be done.
Well, the majority of people vote for what they want. I mean, that's one of the things is we got a lot of people in America. I mean, America is secular in form, but let's face it, in terms of culture, we are a hell of a lot closer to places like Iran than we are Europe. I mean, religion plays a far huger role in what people see in government and see as desirable in America than it does in most other major first world nations. And it has for a long time. I mean, hell, John F. Kennedy actually had to come out and tell people, no, the Pope's not giving me my orders because, anti-Catholic prejudice because they weren't the right type of Christian was a big thing back then. I mean, that's another thing we need to remember is that it's not just you can't get voted in if you're an atheist or a Muslim. It's also if you are not the right type of Christian, you may run into problems. Because obviously Christianity is not some kind of unified body.
Well, yeah, but a person's religion should have nothing whatsoever to do with their ability to lead. I wish we had no idea what anyone's religion was. I wish that these people were forbidden to speak about their religious beliefs at all while they're on the campaign trail, because it has nothing to do with their ability to lead, their ability to make policy, their ability to do anything in the public or in the government sphere. But no, they spend all their time talking about it. It's all they talk about on the GOP side. And it's ridiculous. There is, like I said, a de facto religious test, because them going out there and screaming about their religion is their entry card.
Yeah, well, that's the point. That's what makes it power. I mean, if you want to change this, you've got to kind of change the people. Because they're saying, well, okay, Ben Carson's kind of saying it because Ben Carson is not doing really well. And so he's kind of, he's throwing shit at the wall and hoping it'll stick. But, it won't hurt him because so many people consider that, okay, and, that is the real problem. It's not, the people running for office aren't so much the problem. It's the fact that this would actually work. And in all seriousness, that's a problem that's been pretty endemic to the U.S. for quite some time. People are really hysterically terrified of this great threat that has been built up, ever since Saddam Hussein was going to launch nukes at us. Iran is preparing to destroy us, even though they have no reason to. Look at this, look at that, look at the other thing. And of course, then you ask, well, okay, have you ever actually met a Muslim? Well, probably not. But there's Muslims in your community. Why haven't you met them? Because 99% of the Muslims in America, I mean, hell, we have lost more people, with the exception of 9/11, to right-wing Christians than we have Muslims in America.
Yeah, I mean...
But that doesn't fit the dialogue.
I mean, somebody pointed out that of all the mass murders that we've had in the U.S. over the last 50 years, only one has had anything to do with Islam. Maybe
Yeah,
two
now granted.
if you're going to count like the Boston Marathon bombing.
Right. And of course some of those are just, nuts. But, it really scared people. I mean, 9/11 really gave people a major case of scare. And it's been, pandered to and enhanced. So we don't have them now, but does anyone remember the, various color codings for, are we plaid? Are we brown pants this week for the terror warnings? It's brown pants warning. Everybody, your pants will be brown because terrorists are coming. And of course it was just completely ridiculous because everybody who knows anything about counterterrorism said that, there's no way you can have a warning for the United States as a whole that does anything. It was just a way to keep fear
Of course.
And people remain afraid, which is unfortunate because fear is something that actually ultimately makes things worse. But, just Carson, you're not going to become president. Just go home.
Yeah, I mean,
okay?
he's one of those people, and pretty much the entire GOP clown car is like this. These are people who absolutely are not qualified to be president at all because they are not dedicated to actually serving the American people. They're dedicated to serving their religious beliefs and nothing else. These people should not be president at all.
One of my friends who's a political scientist, he said the scary thing isn't that Trump is running. The scary thing is that you cannot just flat out say Trump is the worst of the lot. And he said, that's scary. That, you're looking at, and of course right now, Walker dropped out of the race and gave us screaming that we must battle the evil Donald Trump. But, it's kind of like, well guys, maybe if you actually had a message that people, especially people in the general election, might find appealing. But they don't. They're going to keep telling us about, they must fight, we must fight the Muslims. They can't become president. And by the way, we're going to refit the army with holy hand grenades and M16s that were provided by Brother Maynard. So, and it's a little embarrassing. I mean, I suppose I could say that at least we're lucky that none of our candidates have been implicated in screwing a dead pig. As the British just found out. But, it's still embarrassing when you have to go that low to, you never want to say, well, our guys aren't as bad as you, because you all tried that in elementary school and the teacher said it never worked, so why the hell are we doing it with our presidential race?
Because these people are still at the level of elementary school. These people have never grown up. They're still completely immature idiots. And so is the American electorate, so I guess that's no surprise.
No. So, shall we continue to the next story? We have a lot of Muslims this week, so...
This high school freshman loves to tinker with all things electronic, but his latest invention got the 14-year-old hauled in handcuffs to the police station in Irving, Texas. Take a look at his homemade digital clock, a maze of wires and circuit boards inside a metal case. He built it at home to impress his teachers, but one of them thought it might be a bomb and alerted authorities.
That's a very suspicious device. We live in an age where you can't take things like that to schools.
But arresting a 14-year-old?
I think this wouldn't even be a question if his name wasn't Ahmed Mohammed.
Police say they are not charging Ahmed, but they are standing by their initial response. So are school officials, who suspended him for 3 days. This morning, he's something of a techie superstar. Twitter inviting him to intern, Google asking him to their science fair, Mark Zuckerberg wants him to visit Facebook, and even the President of the United States tweeting him, "Cool clock, Ahmed. Want to bring it to the White House?"
You're going to the White House, my friend?
Yes.
For Good Morning America, Ryan Owens, ABC News, Irving, Texas.
Our brave police and teachers saved the school from being destroyed by a Muslim terrorist clock. Oh, wait a minute. No, they didn't. They arrested and traumatized the 14-year-old tech head for bringing a homemade clock to school. Yeah, that's basically where we are. Ahmed Mohammed was arrested, taken out of school in handcuffs because he had basically put together a clock, put it in a little, pencil box, and brought it to school. Now, the thing here is that the first thing that happened is his engineering teacher saw it and said, yeah, that's pretty cool, but you don't want to really show it to anyone. Then it started beeping in another class. An English teacher, who no doubt is far more qualified to detect a bomb than the engineering teacher, lost her shit. So he was brought into the office. 5 to 6 police officers showed up. He was interrogated. Then he was brought to a detention center. All right, there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, he's wearing a NASA t-shirt. There is no explosives in it. He told one of his teachers about it. This doesn't scream bomb or hoax to me. I'm sorry. There's that. Secondly, his rights were violated. And I'm not saying that in the moral sense. Texas law states that if you take a child into custody, you must respect his wish to have a parent or representative handy. That's in Texas law. That's not optional. You must. They didn't for several hours. They threatened him with expulsion unless he wrote a note. He did not, fortunately. And, then they got him to court, or to the police station. This got out on social media, and the whole thing started just, unraveling like crazy. He's got an invite to the White House. He's got, MIT's invited him, which for a lot of nerds is probably actually more important than the White House. But, there's a couple of problems I have with this. First of all, I can't say the initial reaction was anti-Muslim, although there are some signs it was because of things the police said, because schools lose their shit at stuff like this all the time. This is another case that we live in this strange environment of fear where children making bang bang noises get suspended, and in one case a 12-year-old girl who wrote on her desk was arrested by police and taken out handcuffed in front of all of her friends and did the perp walk to the police station. Yeah. That's a thing in America today. I didn't know it when I was growing up, but, in the naked city there are a million stories, and some of those stories involve 12-year-olds writing on desks. However, there was prejudice, I think, after it. We had some people talking about, well, you have to worry because all the Muslims bringing bombs, and like, no, you don't. You look at a case, Ahmed's case, you don't worry about other Muslims any more than if a kid comes to school in Oklahoma City smelling of fertilizer. You don't scream, oh my God, it's a kid trying to imitate Timmy McVeigh, and then you drag him out and you arrest him because he could have had a fertilizer bomb. No, that's fucking stupid. You evaluate the case based on what is happening in that case. And in this case, a kid assembled a clock, and yeah, there's another thing I want to say to people. There's a bunch of people saying he didn't really assemble it. It wasn't a big deal. Dude, it's more than I would have done when I was 14. And he put it together in 20 minutes because he thought it would be neat to show his teacher. If the school hadn't lost their shit, we never would have heard about this. So no, he's not trying to fake out America. America's looking at something a kid put together in about 20 minutes to show to his teacher that the school then promptly, turned into Ahmed the Mad Bomber. And
yeah, but you got to remember, there's an awful lot of people out there who are trying to play this kid up like he's some kind of a genius, and he's not. He took a commercial clock out of its case, put it in a different case, and everybody is pretending like he was out there creating circuit boards and, programming the damn thing. He did nothing like that.
Right. I mean, and he has.
Oh no, he admits what he did.
Yeah. So, and the thing is that you got, I know that he apparently in other cases has done stuff with circuit boards, but like I said, this was something he slapped together in 20 minutes to show his teacher. Probably decided, hey, I'm going to take the clock apart to see how it looks, put it back in another case. Cool, I'm going to show the teacher. Again, more than I would have done. I probably would have burned the house down, even though theoretically there's no way you could burn the house down with a clock like that, but, and the problem I get is that you've got people on both sides, I'm really upset at the school should have been, better safe than sorry. No. The reason we have teachers and not Daleks at school is that you're supposedly able to use your best judgment. And, it's one of these cases where, we are in, just ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think it's clear that they didn't really think it was a bomb because they would have called the bomb squad.
No, they
called the cops. The cops came. They took the kid away. Okay. But the teacher can't be going, oh yes, I have a serious reason to think that this is a bomb, because the bomb squad would have shown up there. They would have evacuated the school. They would have gone in there and detonated the clock and all the rest of that.
They tried to cover themselves and say, well, maybe he was trying for a hoax bomb. Except, of course, the fact that they first asked him, and he said no. And then he showed it to the teacher. This was just people trying to cover their ass, forgetting the fact that, guys, close your mouths, you're just looking stupider the more you go along. And the city council endorsed one of the Texas legislature bills that would forbid judges from rulings based on foreign laws. Anti-Sharia laws, as they normally call them, which, of course, is kind of ridiculous because judges already don't rule based on foreign laws. It's one of these things that you're fighting against a problem that isn't there. I mean, now there are Sharia legal institutions in the U.S., as there are Christian legal institutions that assist people in coming to legal arrangements that are in holding with their faith, but those are not courts. Those have no legitimacy under American law. They are simply an organization. Like, for instance, you would go to one and say, okay, how do I write a contract that is in keeping with the Islamic faith? It has nothing to do with a judge. If you write a contract that's illegal under American law, I'm sorry, I don't care how much is in accordance with your faith, right. You got problems. But,
yeah, I just think this whole thing is kind of ridiculous. And let's be honest, they did not take the kid to a detention facility. They took him to a police station. Let's be really honest. The writer of the article was ridiculously biased. That's not the way it worked. It's like they're going, and they took him to Guantanamo. No, they didn't. Stop fucking, people on both sides of this are just being stupid.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. I'm really tired of stupid. I'm tired of stupid when it comes to politics. I'm tired of stupid when it comes to Christianity. I'm tired of stupid when it comes to Islam. I'm just tired of stupid. What the fuck are we going to do about so many damn stupid people out there? I mean, we need to have stupid hunting licenses. You can take down 5 a day, but you got to prove they really, really deserved it.
Yeah.
And I think the GOP would go away really quickly, followed by the Democrats, because they're just as stupid. I get tired of people going, oh yeah, all the people in the GOP clown car, they're so stupid. Here we have Hillary and Bernie. Yeah, they're just as bad. Fuck them.
Yep, so it's just an unfortunate incident. I mean, I thought it was really stupid because I was just looking at that and going, Jesus Christ, you're supposed to teach the students a little bit of intelligence. You're supposed to teach them how to deal with people. This was not a good
Texas.
Lesson. Well, it's happening. Equally stupid things with supposed bombs and guns have happened in California too. So, we have a problem in that. Well, it's just something that seriously schools and districts need to start asking themselves, why are we involving the police so much? In all honesty, that is really the problem I have, is that increasingly you'll notice that stuff that used to just go up to the principal was worth a talk. All of a sudden you got the cops showing up, you got people, it's just...
Yeah, you got people going to jail for things that are just ridiculous. They have nothing to do with the law. It's just a bunch of do-gooders going, oh, well, we have to inform the authorities. No, you don't. These are just kids doing kid things. There's nothing wrong with it. You grew up doing the same damn thing, and you didn't get a fucking criminal record or be on the sex offender list or any of this other shit. I mean, there are schools out there who are calling the cops because kids are holding hands. Fuck you people.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we should move on to the main event, even though we are running super short this week.
Yeah, well, we'll average it out with the others. I mean, a lot of these stories, unfortunately, there's really not too much to say except dumb. You run into a problem there, is that there's a lot of stories. We have stories these days, that you just can't do a lot with because really, they just show that the stupid it burns.
All right.
This is the main event.
Since this turned out to be a Muslim-heavy show, we figured we'd keep the trend going and talk about something that has always confused me about a lot of American atheists. Why they, especially on the left, are so terrified to speak out and criticize Islam. After all, we have no problem attacking Christianity or seemingly any other religion, so what makes Islam special, and why are there so many people calling anyone who disagrees with Islam, even radical terrorist Islam, racist? What is wrong with these people?
I don't know. Part of the problem is, of course, is that you've got people who are genuinely racist against Islam anti-religious against Islam and racist against Muslims of various things.
Muslim isn't a race. You cannot be racist against
Right, well, that's
Muslims.
the problem. But But there are a lot of people out there who for some reason seem to, well, they'd be surprised to know that there are non-Arab Muslims in the world. They'd be surprised to know that Iranians are not Arabs. They'd be surprised to know that some of the largest populations of the Islamic faith are not in them.
The largest populations of Islam are in the Philippines.
Right. In Philippines, but, a lot of these groups don't. Now, what the problem is that you get into this argument a lot. If someone starts attacking you, and they act like a racist, some people then start saying, well, you can't have any criticism because that criticism is racist, which is wrong. You're not criticizing, if you're criticizing, say, for example, Pakistan's practices regarding people who are considered apostates or blasphemers, you're not criticizing the race. You're criticizing a behavior within the culture, within the religion. You're not saying that, okay, I hate the person who goes to a mosque in L.A. You're saying, I find it very disgusting that there's a state in which someone could be put to death for blasphemy. But unfortunately, it's easy on both sides, because on the one hand, then you got the people like, Ben Carson, who is, you can never be a president if you're Muslim because Muslims are somehow icky. You got the guys with the machine guns saying this will cause Muslims to scream and vanish in a flare of, divine M16 bullets. And for a lot of people that says, okay, I don't want to criticize this religion because I'm with these guys. And no, you're not. Criticism of a religion, criticism of a people, of a group is not racism as long as you restrict yourself to criticizing a behavior that you find inappropriate. For instance, you can criticize the settlements on the West Bank without being anti-Semitic. If you start talking about how I want all the Jews of Israel to be driven into the ocean, oh hell yeah, then you're being anti-Semitic. But if you're saying, okay, look, this is an illegal occupation that is violating the rights of the Palestinians and should not be supported by the U.S., that's not anti-Semitic any more than fighting against segregation in the U.S. was anti-white. It's focusing on a behavior, and this is something I think a lot of people don't understand.
Or don't care about, which is really honest.
Or don't care about, or are worried by the fact that there are people who claim, I'm not racist against X, and then you hear them talking, and you realize, they really are. They're just trying to avoid the claims. And it's a good rhetorical tool used by people who want to shut any criticism down. Screaming racism is a very good way to shut debate down, which requires, of course, that if you're criticizing somebody, you have your ducks in a row, you understand, you know what you're doing, and then you are in a position of being able to back up your criticism. Like, for instance, if I say I don't like the Taliban, I'm not racist against the Afghans. I don't like the Taliban because they're a bunch of murdering psychotics. If you say, okay, we dislike the fact that in places like Saudi Arabia, there is no freedom of religion, there is no freedom of speech, you're not criticizing the idea of Islam because you can say that, okay, there are secular Islamic states. You're criticizing it as it's portrayed in Saudi Arabia. As it is.
No, I'll be perfectly honest. I hate Islam, the religion. That says nothing about the people who practice Islam, the religion.
Yes,
but the thing is, every religion sucks. But that doesn't make anything I say racist, because I'm not saying anything about the people. I'm not saying the people are a bunch of fucking assholes. I'm saying the religion that they practice, and that goes for Christianity. Christianity, I'm not saying, hey, I'm a racist against white male whatever, because they're the traditional people who are following Christianity. Has nothing to do with that. So this whole idea that any of this is racist at all is just fucking stupid.
Well, see, but then you get people who talk about, I was listening on talk radio about how, for instance, the Iranian people innately hate America. And there he's not talking about the religion. He's not talking about practices of the religion or the Council of Guardians. He's saying, okay, by virtue of, being what they are, they hate America. And again, this gets to the problem is that you gotta be careful. You gotta say, and you got to sometimes tell people, no.
Well, no. Even if that
and
were
that
true.
shuts both sides down.
It's still not being racist. It's being anti-Iran. Iran is not a race. These people are Persian. They are not Iranian. These, No,
But
that's the thing, is that these people are saying, well, these people who have a particular ideology, a particular national interest, a particular national belief, religion, whatever, we're going to say that because racism is such a hot button issue in the U.S., that we're going to call everything everybody is racist. And that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, but I would also say some of the people screaming about Iran, they think they're being racist because they don't know they're Persians. That's another problem. I mean, a lot of the people who are racist are about as fucking ignorant as you can find. But, yeah, I mean, the thing to do is that if you're focusing on the behavior of a culture, a people, today, I mean, of course, obviously, there's a lot of scientists who these days think, conceptions of race are obsolete. But in a lot of cases, the best way to protect yourself from those accusations, to avoid the thing being shut down, is ask, okay, how am I being racist? Am I striking at a behavior that can be changed? I mean, for me, an important point is to always be certain that you're not saying that any group is innately, and that, okay, what can be changed? What are they doing wrong? What is going on? Like, for instance, Iran, because again, a lot of people in America, whether or not they know they're Persians, whether or not they think of them like that, they don't hate, they see Iran as a race. Well, of course they're idiots. These are the same people that buy guns that fire holy bullets. But fundamentally, then you go, okay, what is Iran doing wrong?
True, and there are plenty of Persians all over the place. There are Persian Christians. There are Persian people living in the U.S. There are Persian people living on every continent of the world.
Right now, Iran, I mean, the numbers have gone down, sadly, but I think there's still anywhere from 8 to 10,000 Persian Jews in Iran. They actually had a monument built to them a while back for their service during the Iran-Iraq War. But yeah, I mean, you are in a situation where, to my mind, the best way to avoid accusations of racism is be very firm, say, no, I'm not. How do you say I am racism? What am I doing that is racist? And if they say something, well, you're just criticizing. I say, what? And criticism is not allowed? I criticize Christianity all the time. I criticize every group under the sun. It does not make me a racist. In fact, a good way to look at somebody who's just, being racist or religiousist or, whatever you care to mention is if they only criticize one group. Like, for instance, getting back to Carson or getting back to the conservative group that says the Pope's pagan. They'll never say anything bad about, right-wing Christianity in America.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say with Carson, I think Carson is a fucking idiot. But that doesn't make me racist because he's black. That makes me, he's an idiot because he's a fucking fundamentalist asshole Christian.
He's an idiot because of beliefs he holds. He's an idiot because, he just talked about, denying somebody else due to their religion. I'm not better, religiousist. I'm not certain, racist, religiousist, because obviously if you're talking about Muslims, you're not, as you said, you're not being racist. In fact, if anything, you're on a far broader spectrum, than mere racism, which is restricted to, groups, because, Carson's saying Muslims everywhere shouldn't be elected president, even if they're the most secular people around.
Yeah, but you gotta remember that the reason that things like racism and sexism and, being anti-gay and all the rest of this stuff is wrong is because these people have no choice in the matter. They are what they are. They're born what they're born. Their genetics are what their genetics are, and they have no choice in the matter. When you get to religion and politics and things like that, people have a choice.
Right.
And so they are opting to be this way. So criticizing them is not wrong because they have chosen this path.
Well, and criticizing them based on how they carry it out. Because again, like I said, if there is a world of difference between the Episcopalian down the road, the secular Muslim down the road, and the bomb-throwing anti-abortion right-wing Looney Tunes activist and the Taliban commander. I mean, as you said, everyone has a choice. The fundamental choice for me with religion is this religion playing nicely with others? I mean, really seriously, whether or not I agree with your religious viewpoints, it's not my business as long as you're playing nicely with others. Because I don't go up to people and ask them what their religion is. I don't care. If someone comes up to me and demands that I see the light, I get a little upset because generally I'm thinking about other things. But again, that's really the core. And it is not racist to point out that, or religiousist or whatever the hell we want to point out, that, yeah, Islam does in a lot of areas have serious problems. In many cases, these problems are based on old tribal customs that actually aren't really, part of what you would consider Islam. You got that with the Taliban. You've got that with Daesh. I mean, seriously, you're not going to be racist if you're saying that the ISIS is a bunch of fucking lunatics that need to be dragged out and shot. I really don't think that. If I say, for example, that, the Arab states around Israel have never missed an opportunity, when the Israelis were willing to listen to make peace, that's not racist, because I'll follow it up with saying, and when the Israelis have had an opportunity to make peace, that's when they decided to turn around and say, no, we're grabbing more. We don't want to give up the land because we settled right-wing religious settlers on that land so we could have facts on the ground. So, I'll be an equal opportunity. You're all stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, none of that is racist at all.
Right.
Politics is not racist. Politics is not a choice. And that's what these people can't separate between the two. And I think it's because on the left, you have so many people who just use racism as a club. Anything that they don't like, if you speak out about anything that they don't like, you're a racist or you're a sexist or, they run around. You're a misogynist if you speak out against radical feminism because it's just a club to hit people over the head with to shut them the hell up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an easy tool. It's not just racism on the left. It's, you're not a Christian on the right. You're a rhino on the, because it's an easy way to shut a debate down if you don't have an answer to it. And it's hurt by the fact that, yeah, there are people running around saying, well, we're not racism. It's, like what was going on in the school. But so that one problem is sometimes it does happen. I will say that, it's never a good sign when this starts. That's generally a reason I disengage from those conversations, because once somebody brings out the racism card, you're never going to go anywhere good. You're just not. The conversation, this person is a lost cause.
Yeah, but that's why so many of these conversations end before they even begin, because that's the lead that you get so many people out there with. I mean, that's why
Right.
Atheism Plus ate itself, but that's why they became so utterly pointless, because the first word out of their mouths was misogynist, racist, sexist, blah, 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 blah. And you could never have a rational discussion with these people because that was the first thing they led with. Everybody hates everybody as far as they're concerned. And then they ate themselves because they just started attacking each other because they couldn't agree that everybody, they think each other hates each other, and the whole thing just exploded.
That's the problem with true believers. I mean, you see that in every true believer movement. You see it in like the GOP, you see it on the left, because pretty soon it becomes a contest to say who is the truest believer. And you find out that, okay, in many cases, nobody can be the true believer, so everybody screams and the whole thing disintegrates into a really miserable, explosion. It's kind of like a debate over role-playing game rules, only with politics in it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and, it is unfortunate because there is a lot of room for discussion on a whole range of issues. Again, to discuss the question of Islam is that, no, there's a lot of problems in many places that could be improved by having a forthright discussion. There are issues about racism and sexism all over the world, but it's not helped by defining everything, because then what happens is that you poison the debate so that you're really talking about nothing. You're just screaming to prove that you're against the man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I noticed in the story that we did last week on the Quran that might prove that Islam isn't what Islam wants to think it was. I saw that Rebecca Watson had done some kind of a post on it defending Islam against anybody. She was basically defending Islam against science. And I didn't read it because I refuse to read anything the stupid bitch writes. But in what some other people wrote about it, it seems like she's just blindly going, well, holy shit, they're attacking Islam. We have to defend it. It's blind defense against anybody who attacks Islam. But that makes me wonder, why doesn't the left, and why don't the left atheists, they sure don't do that against, like, Buddhism or Hinduism or Shintoism or any other religion practiced by primarily non-white people. They don't defend those people. They don't claim that detractors are racists. What the fuck is it about Islam specifically that makes it special?
Of course, recently Islam, one of the problems is that there have been a lot of anti-Islamics in the U.S. ever since 9/11. So you don't tend to hear much about Shintoism. You don't tend to hear much about Buddhism, even though there are parts of the world where the Buddhists are just as nasty as the Taliban. Burma, I'm looking at you. But it doesn't get a lot of play in the U.S. Most people, if they think about Shintoism or Buddhism or Hinduism, they get images of, the wise Swami teaching the martial artist how to go out and do his Kung Fu Panda stunts. I mean, they're safe religions.
No, but I address all of that. If there's something bad going on, I talk about it regardless of what religion it is. I'm an equal opportunity offender. But the only ones that ever get any response, the only ones are the ones against Islam. Never against anybody else. If you got the Buddhists in Myanmar out murdering Muslims, they don't give a shit. But as soon as you say anything bad against Islam, even if you're saying Boko Haram is out there murdering people, ISIS is out there murdering people, blatantly obvious terrorists, they are defending these people and calling me a racist. What the fuck is it about this in particular? I don't get it.
Like I said, it's probably just because it has become such a central part of our debate. I expected if Shintoism or Buddhism had become so central, and has become such a central part of the dialogue, you would probably see the same thing. Islam's in the news. A lot of people feel it has to be defended at all costs because there's people in there attacking it at all costs. And again, it's one of the problems that when you get into these kind of debates, not a lot gets done. And unfortunately, it's the case where we do need a debate because, again, in some aspects, it's not racist to say that, Islam is practiced in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran. Is it really compatible with a secular state?
How is it racist in any way, shape, or form to point out that a whole bunch of people who are not even part of the same damn ethnic group practice the same religion? How is there any way you can get to racism from that?
Because people believe that Islam is a race.
Because people are fucking stupid. And that's the problem.
Because, on both sides, because unfortunately, again, you got Carson out there talking about all Muslims. The mighty Borg Muslim collective. We will assimilate you and you must now, eat proper foods and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you got the other people who are defining Muslim racism as against all Muslims. In some cases, it's because they're talking to people like Ben Carson. But you're right. A lot of it is because, the terminology is used very poorly.
Yeah, but I'm not out there defending people like Carson and the religious nutballs. But I expect more from supposedly educated atheists. And I'm not getting it.
I don't know. It's the problem of the group. And it happens with all groups, actually, because you get people here who want to shut it down. And unfortunately, let's remember, many atheists, or shall we say, they've discovered atheism for the first time in their life, and they're kind of young. Fascism used to be the thing that would shut down conversations back in the 90s.
Oh, and communism and all the rest of that
stuff. And communism, and so unfortunately, it's iteration number 100 of people finding something that they think can let them walk away with the argument saying, I won. I shut the argument down. Well, no, actually what you really were doing on whichever side you were on, you were screaming with your fingers poked in your mouth, screaming a la 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 la, I can't hear you, instead of interacting. Which of course does nothing if you're actually dealing with somebody who really is a racist against Muslims.
You cannot, by definition, stop saying that. It's not true by definition. That's like saying you're racist against Christians. It doesn't exist.
It's not true by definition, but that is the dialogue in America today.
Well, the dialogue is stupid and needs to change.
The dialogue may be stupid and needs to change, but it's so dominant at this point, I don't think it will. But yeah, you are right. You cannot be, like I said, I don't know what it's a religiousist. Is there a term for prejudice based on religion?
But it's not prejudice. You can't have prejudice against something that someone chooses to do because they choose to do it. It's called being critical of a stupid idea, which is what religion is. Being critical of a stupid idea, which is what a lot of the politics we talk about is. there's no bias there. There's no hatred. This is a stupid idea that we have to talk about.
Right, but I'm saying that, for instance, like, if you get some guy saying, well, all Muslims are terrorists in the making.
Which is stupid because that's a generalization that doesn't exist.
A generalization. But that's the problem, what you get a lot of people saying when they incorrectly, as you said, relate it as racism. Stereotyping. Maybe stereotyping would be a good term for it. I am claiming that all Muslims are X, even though many of them aren't.
Well, yeah, if you say all X is Y, you're wrong almost 100% of the time. So let's not even go there. And let's not just try to throw out a one word, you're being racist, you're being this, you're being that. No, you might be wrong. You might be stereotyping, but to just try to dismiss your entire argument by just saying you are this label, that's stupid.
Well, it's stupid because the proper argument would be you are wrong because. In many cases, racism, these claims doesn't come with the vital because after it. Because. Why am I? Because.
Well, it's because, to be really honest, it's because I don't like what you're saying. They don't have a reason because they're ideologically programmed to believe something in opposition to what you're saying. But they can't express it. They can't articulate it. They just believe it. It's blind faith, and it's always true. And therefore, they don't have to tell you why it's wrong because they don't have to. It's just wrong.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's an unfortunate thing because it does shut down a lot of legitimate discourse that could be helpful. I mean, because again, once you start throwing out those words, the conversation's usually over. I mean, there is nothing to be gained from the conversation after that.
Which means that for a lot of people, there's no possible conversation with the left. You can't talk to a lot of liberals, especially the extremists, the radical liberals, the radical feminists, the people who are like this, who this is their leading argument. There's no way to talk to these people. These people are, by definition, fanatics.
Well, yeah, but you get that on every. I mean, heck, I'm a liberal in some respects, and you get that on every side. The problem is and let's face it, what's the difference between a fanatic liberal and a fanatic conservative? It's usually what they call themselves, but in truth, you get the same anti-intellectualism. The same, win at all costs, the same, this is my cause. The problem is that anyone who's chosen a belief and has become a fanatic at that belief, there's nothing to be gained by talking to them. The big problem is that we have a political system that increasingly rewards that. Instead of being shoved off, you get people like that who are being cheered on. And that is really the biggest problem because the guy screaming on the street isn't an issue. It's when the guy screaming on the street becomes mayor.
Right, but, that's the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both like that. They're made up of fanatics. People who have their blind political faith that their way is the only way and they can't defend it. They can't argue for it. They can't sit down and say, here's why I think this way. Here's why I think you're wrong. It's just, I'm right, you're wrong, fuck you. And that's the way that this whole thing has turned out, where people can't argue their own points anymore. People don't understand why they think the way that they think. Every political point that I have, every intellectual point that I have, I can defend. I can argue for. I can argue against what other people think because I know I've taken the time to realize why it is that I think the way that I think. And so many of these people are just ideologues that they're just right because they're right because they're right. This whole country, and in fact, this whole planet is just going fucking nuts that way.
Well, the problem, of course, is now, one advantage you have is now you can be a fanatic, and as long as you have an internet connection, you can tell the world about it. That's another. I mean, I really think one of the problems that this has been the fact that increasingly the internet lets you talk to people who agree with you and ignore everybody else.
Yeah, that's actually a point that we made a long, long time ago, and we'll kind of go off topic here. But talking about furries, and I know we don't really want to talk about furries because they're scary. But, there was a point in time way back in the 80s when we were kind of involved in that kind of thing where these people were really sad, pathetic little losers who really, they were on their own. They felt isolated because they didn't know anybody else who felt the way that they did. And then online came along, first with BBSs and then with the internet, where these people who you might have one every 500 miles, now
we're suddenly a community.
Yeah, now they had a community. And now they had people to tell them that they were just fine, that fucking chickens wasn't a bad thing.
I must admit, now, evidently the Prime Minister of Great Britain fucked a pig, so I'm...
Yeah, well, he might be a furry, you never know. But...
that's a scary thought. He has access to nuclear weapons. And it works for everything. Of course, on the positive viewpoint, equally, we can say that there were many, lesbian and homosexual teens who quite possibly, for the first time in their lives with the arrival of the internet, found the community that told them, there's nothing wrong with you. So, we shouldn't say it's all negative, but yeah, the problem is that the internet and increasingly this ability to have these tight, closed groups allows you to ever avoid having to defend your viewpoint because you are never with people who don't share your viewpoint.
Right. I mean, like we were talking about with Atheism Plus, that's exactly what they did. They gathered together in this closed community where they wouldn't allow any opposing viewpoints, and they all lost their ability to actually defend what they believed. It was all groupthink. It was, we're right because we're right because we're right, and nobody who disagrees with us, nobody who brings up any points against us, they can't even be considered because we're right.
Yeah. And that is an unfortunate situation. That really, seriously, a big takeaway from this is seek out opposing viewpoints. Seek out intelligent opposing viewpoints, because those test your own viewpoints. And if you find out you have no answers except one words or things like you're another, your viewpoint may need help.
Yeah, but people are terrified of that. They don't want to know that. Christians don't want to go out and seek out Muslims. They don't want to go out and seek out atheists. They don't want to go out and seek out Buddhists. They don't want to go out and talk to these people and test their views against others. They just want to believe what they believe because what they believe is emotionally comforting, and that's all that matters to these people.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's one of these things that, I don't know. We'll have to stick with this and see what happens.
Yeah, I really have no idea. Well, before we close up for the week, last week we had kind of brought up our 100th show, which is going to be next week, and we've had no suggestions at all. I did reach out to a couple of people who have been past co-hosts, and unfortunately, they're all busy. So we're not going to have any special guests next week. So we may just do a regular show. I don't know. But if anybody has any ideas, get them in really quickly. Pretty much if you haven't gotten them to us by Sunday, they won't even be considered. So, like I said, if you care about the hundredths, and it's an artificial thing that I really couldn't care less about. It's just another show as far as I'm concerned. But let us know, because letting us know is half the battle. So, anything else for the week?
So, no, that's it for me.
All right. And that's the show. How did we do? You know where to send comments, questions, and suggestions. Make sure you give us a good review on iTunes and Stitcher, wherever you listen, and tell your friends. We'll be back next week with show number 100, so stay tuned, and may the force be with you. Adios.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bitchspot Report podcast. We invite listeners to interact with the show by commenting on our website at report.jdragononline.com. We can also be found on most social media sites, including Facebook, Google+, Tumblr, and Twitter. You can also listen on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Player FM, as well as on the aforementioned website. New episodes post every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Those interested in being on the air, please visit our website. All instructions are there. We appreciate our listeners and supporters. We couldn't do this without you.